My name is Tom. I was born on a working cattle ranch in Montana. I had never seen the ocean till I went in the Army. I got out of the Army and came to Oregon and met my wife Marge, who is always with me on all these adventures. I finally got a temporary job when it was a slow season on our farming. I got a job working on the fishing boat, the Red Wing, off the Oregon coast. The sea is a fascinating place, but there's hidden dangers there. It can be almost boring at times, and then all hell can break loose. I've always been fascinated by the sea and those rugged boats that put to sea and the rugged breed of men that walk the decks in this dangerous way of life. I went up to Tillamook Bar to see if I could film some boats crossing the bar with a storm hanging on the horizon and beginning to build in intensity. When I arrived at the bar, I saw two sets of masts standing just off the bar, ready to come in. I had some camera difficulties. I took the camera to the car and worked on it. When I came back, I saw the two boats, the Kilchis and the Basil Boy, running real close to the jetty. I thought nothing of this at first, and then I realized that they were in a way closer than they should be. And then I could see a man standing on the back of the Kilchis, reaching for a line. The Basil Boy was trying to get a line on there to pull him off, but in spite of it, they couldn't move in close enough with the Basil Boy, and they couldn't catch the line in the breaking sea here, right on the north jetty. The Kilchis had 3 men aboard, and it looks to me like they're in trouble, and trouble of the very worst kind, as a merciless sea is pounding them and hammering them and grinding them against the jetty. I can see the men standing on the deck as the boat lists seaward. Then I can see a giant hole right in the hull of the Kilchis as she lays over seaward. This is even going to make the rescue effort more difficult because she's starting to drift seaward now. And the Basil Boys moved in dangerously close, but can't get in close enough due to the rocks and the masts of the Kilchis leaning out toward them. And they're still making an attempt to save their vessel. This is their livelihood. But when we see this cloud of black smoke drifting skyward as a brisk sea breeze blows it toward the jetty, we realize that's the end of the Kilchis. That meant all compartments are flooded and the diesel stove had drowned out. Some seagulls are swarming above with their mournful squawking as the men are trying to get a life raft freed now to get in it. These men aren't great swimmers. They get a life raft, but it's hopelessly tangled in the rigging. They take to the life raft now, but the life raft sinks, again dumping the occupants into an ice-cold, breaking sea. The Basil Boys moved in now, and they're throwing anything that'll float in the water, hoping it'll drift to the crew. They're still in the life raft here, but not for long. The captain talked to me later, and he said he just saw his life flash in front of him and realized this was it. Then he looked ahead of him, and there it was, a life ring thrown off the deck of the Basil Boy. He got in it, and the wind kicked him over next to the jetty. I knew I had to do something and do it quick, or someone's going to drown here. I shoved the camera into the hands of my wife's 13-year-old nephew and told him to keep it running. He said he kept it running. He said there was only one trouble. He couldn't find the little hole to peek through. But he caught the footage of me running down the jetty. I'm looking for a pole or a rope or anything I can throw to the men, and I can't find a thing. I see him clinging to a rock down in the edge of the foam. I crawl down there and talk to him and tell him we got to get out of here. They said, we're so tired, we can't move. I sat there with him. A great big breaker came in. It completely covered all of us. That gave us strength enough to crawl to the jetty. Here we come up. That's me there. I was the first one. The big man in the stocking feet, they've kicked off their boots, is Jim Parks. The other is Jake Brown. Jim Parks, the ship's master, mournfully looks back on the spot where his ship once stood, the largest boat operating out of Garibaldi. The Coast Guard arrived right as they get to the gate on the jetty. These men went to sea on a boat, and they're going to ride back in a Coast Guard pickup. The storm built in intensity, and the spray is now going completely over the jetty as the breakers build. The seagulls are swarming farther and farther out to sea, so we know they're looking at the wreckage below the water. It goes out and on the other side of the jetty. So I go the next day to see if I can see it, but all I find is splintered wreckage of the Kilchis scattered for about 2 miles on the beach. The Kilchis was built in Seattle, Washington in 1908. It was going to be a cannery tender. It hauled fish to California and iced back. When freezers were installed at Astoria, the Kilchis was retired, but not for long. She then was used when war broke out as a bar pilot boat to take many a salty old bar pilot out and send him scrambling up a ladder to the deck of the warships and commercial ships of that time. She then, after the war, was retired again and was sold as a fishing vessel. It made many a call up and down the coast and was a familiar sight. There was no loss of life on the Kilchis. When I first got to the wreck, I could see a man walking up the jetty. I thought he was off the Kilchis. I went up and talked to him. I thought at first he couldn't talk. He had a cigar which was broke and dead out, but he kept turning it in his mouth, and he was drenching wet, so I knew he was off the Kilchis. I talked to him. He appeared to be in a state of shock and never once looked back at where the Kilchis was wrecking. In 1968, I scraped together enough money to buy my very first Super 8 movie camera. I've got the camera, now let's get up to Garibaldi and get some pictures. We charter a boat out bottom fishing off the Oregon coast. The name of the boat is the Solo. Her master is Larry Vandecovering, who was walking down. The boat's already warmed up, so we're ready to head to sea. We see the Morning Star still tied up in Garibaldi. It was a replica of the first ship that was built in Garibaldi, and it was to haul cheese and dairy products to California to market. we head out in the calm waters at Tillamook Bay, very carefully following a rip as we're heading for the bar. A few clouds are beginning to burn off the hills around as we move closer and closer out to the Tillamook Bar. We're beginning to feel a slight bit of roll as the deck is pitching and rolling a slight bit under our feet. But we're entering Tillamook Bar, and it looks good. Our captain double checks with the Coast Guard to check on the weather. As we go past the Coast Guard tower and out beyond the end of the jetty, the deck's rolling a little now, and we feel more swells as we're right on the bar. There's a bunch of seabirds working right on the bar, and we move right through them. There must be a group of sea bass in feeding. Past the end of the jetty and out to sea a ways, then we steady on the 3-arch rocks. And as we see them start to see them in the far distance, there are even a few boats in fishing, probably for sea bass and salmon. But we're going down and go after the deep swimming lingcod. The birds nervously move out as we part through the group of birds heading to sea. Then we see it, the 3-arch rocks. We'll steady on the 3-arch rocks, and for about an hour, the tiny gasoline motor of the Solo will push us southward. With a gentle rolling sea and only a calm sea breeze. The 3-arch rocks are a major nesting spot of many, many seabirds. Past Cape Meares and on toward the reef out beyond the 3-arch rocks. The Nancy H is gaining on us. She has a diesel motor, and so she majestically overtakes us right in the shadow of the 3-arch rocks. Pretty soon we're at the fishing hole, and Larry Van de Kovering's young son baits or puts a jig on our hooks, on our lines, and we start fishing. No more than we get the hook down to the bottom, we're starting to catch one right after another. Their poles bent double, people laughing and yelling and having a great time. One fish after another. Then Marge gets a fish on and tangles him with everyone. So our captain now changes from captain to line entangler. He finally gets the situation solved, and more fish are thrown on the deck of the Solo. Then Marge catches a 10-pounder. Didn't realize it was on, and a 70-pounder came up and grabbed it, swallowed it clear down to the gills, and he refused to let go. And so Larry reached the gaff over and pulled him on the deck. Our captain changed from captain and line entangler to the person that gives the all-important mercy blow to the big fish. I display my catch. I caught one really nice big red snapper and another real nice lingcod as we move over toward the 3-arch rocks. Larry's told us he's going to take us in and let us see the nesting seabirds on the 3-arch rocks. Past the first rock, and then we see every little nook and cranny on the 3-arch rocks has a bird nest in it. They're in force nesting on the 3-arch rocks. Beyond the 3-arch rocks, there's a ramp-shaped rock, and this serves as a home for a major colony of the Steller sea lions. The Steller sea lion is our largest sea lion in the area, and there's one big bull on there that sure makes a lot of noise, and he weighs over 2,000 pounds. What a bunch of bull. We move in as close as we dare to the rock where the sea lions were, and then back out past the three arch rocks, and then it's steady as she goes for another hour till we get to the bar, past the old 1890 lighthouse at Cape Meares, and then to Tillamook Bar. And on the way in, when we get in the calmer waters of the bay, it's time to show off our fish as we move in toward the boat basin. Our fish are divided up, and about each family got one of these huge boxes full of these great eating fish. We pull up to the Nancy H. dock and then to our pickup. We take 'em over, and I have a chain in the back of the pickup, so we hold up our catch with a chain, and it's not hard to get a volunteer to help with this. Great sea bass and lingcod and red snapper and a few other types of deep swimming fish. It's just all I can carry to throw in the back of the pickup. Marge takes her turn at showing off the catch as well. And it happens to be one of those rare beauties of a day that you don't see that often. So I've got a new camera. Let's put it to work. And there's some mermaids that apparently have drifted up on the beach on the nice day. Some of them are wearing those risque bikini bathing suits of the early 60s and putting a little suntan lotion on and having a great time. By September, we were out of fish again, and so it's time to go fishing again. I called up to Garibaldi to get a hold of Larry, and Larry's not available, but he said there was another guy that would take us out fishing. He was a school teacher, and his last name was Brown. So I said, okay. I go up there, get aboard the boat, and we head fishing. The weather looks kind of bad today. There's some nasty clouds hanging over. And we move out, and we're already starting to see some pretty heavy chop right in the bay. But he just pulls that throttle back and goes right on through it. The chop turns to kind of a large swell and a few breakers. Then he gets out there and looks at it, and he says, uh-oh, it's too rough, we can't go. And then he takes another look, and he said, well, you know, I believe I can get around this. At that time, I was young and foolish and ready for any kind of an adventure that the sea could put out. We move out through some of the giant swells of Tillamook Bar, and some of them are even breaking right to our left. We can see them breaking over the jetty as we move seaward. Our captain has his hand on the throttle. At this point, you have to work that throttle back and forth to get out to sea, but we're determined to head out, and so we're taking a bit of a chance. We're being a little bit reckless, but hey, we're heading fishing. One big swell after another comes and batters the boat. The windshield wiper is running overtime to get the spray off the windshield, because we've got spray going clear over the boat by now. And the sky doesn't look like it's improving that much. Finally, we can see the end of the jetty, and
will be over the bar in seconds. So at least we got out all right, and no one at this point is thinking about the trip back in. The early morning sun isn't even, it's hidden behind some clouds, and some clouds have hidden the Three Arch Rocks. We move on southward as fast as we can go. That diesel engine's pushing us right southward. Then we can see the Three Arch Rocks. We steady on the Three Arch Rocks and then past Cape Meares, Pyramid Rock, and pretty soon we're at the fishing grounds. There's a terrible current running today, and most everybody, but there's only 3 of us that aren't seasick on the boat, and it's only 3 of us have got a fish for everyone. But fortunately, I'm not plagued with seasickness, neither is this man and his son, and he's really giving it some energy pulling in these fish. We pulled in big lingcod and red snapper and sea bass and sea trout and kelp cod. Then we move in to take a look at the Three Arch Rocks. Every nook and cranny that had seabirds nesting in it is empty now, but a little group of murres stand like tiny sentinels on the ridge of a rock as we go in past it to take a look at the sea lions. Even the water's breaking a little bit in here, and we move in close enough that these sea lions are getting a little bit nervous, and some of them pile into the ocean. Right off Oceanside, it's the ramp-shaped rock you can see from the beach at Oceanside. A few seabirds are setting in the calmer waters of the protection of the Three Arch Rocks, and this big old 2,000-pound bull is sure making a lot of noise as he sets high on the rock. But the sea lions are getting nervous now, and a few of them have even jumped into the sea. So we make an about face and head out past the Three Arch Rocks. We can look at one of the big arches. There was somebody took a big boat through one of these arches one time, but I think that would be a little bit more than enough. A few more seabirds are resting on top of the rock as he pushes that throttle ahead, and we're heading for Garibaldi. I could read a little concern on his face as he repeatedly checks his tide chart as we go past Cape Meares and Pyramid Rock and Pillar Rock. Some of the people are sleeping and taking it easy now. But I know we've got something to look for, and that's the bar. We get to the bar, and it's too rough. We can't cross it. So we'll just move out and make the best of the situation. We'll go out and see if we can catch a few of the sea bass that hang out just beyond the bar. We caught another box full of sea bass, and everyone by this time was participating. Then he looks ahead and he says, I believe we can make it now. We see the breakers breaking on the jetty, and some were breaking out beyond us. And we'll have a following sea, so he has to have someone watch behind. A big breaker can sneak up behind you and break right on the aft deck and turn you sideways and roll you over. So someone has to be there, and when one comes like this, he'll throw the boat into reverse, and this will lift the stern so the breaker can break under you instead of on your deck. And this one coming now, it looks like it would like to break on the deck, but he goes fast enough that it gives the breaker enough time to break and flatten out. So we're all right on that one. But one of these big rollers after another rolls in and breaks right at our stern. Finally, we see the Coast Guard tower at Garibaldi, and it's smooth sailing from now on. Everyone that's seasick is suddenly feeling a lot better, and we start dividing up our catch. Everyone is going to have all the fish they can possibly use. What a great fishing trip.